presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Minnesota.
The Twins will try their luck out on the West Coast tonight, the first of three from Safeco Field. Twins will take on the top team in the American League West, and then later on, the bottom team in the American League West. The Seattle Mariners, one of the great stories in baseball, leading the West by a game and a half as we begin play here tonight. And we welcome you to Safeco Field. I'm Dick Bramer. You'll hear from Roy Smalley here in just a couple of minutes. Tough assignment for the Twins tonight, because they get to face right out of the chute Felix Hernandez, who is a different pitcher than he was just a few years ago. But if anything, he is more effective now than he was when he was a harder thrower. He has always been tough against the Twins, a career ERA of under 2. The Twins hope to be catching him at a good time for them, because they actually had a pretty good series against the Kansas City Royals, capped with a win 2 days ago when they got 12 hits and hit 3 home runs. But the offense has been the story here in Seattle. Second only to the Boston Red Sox in terms of runs scored. This ballpark is not known as a great home run hitter's ballpark, but tell that to the Mariners. They've slugged quite a few, and their top hitter is Robinson Cano. Only David Ortiz has driven in more runs so far this year than the former Yankee, Seattle Mariner star, second baseman Robinson Cano. Twins will try to make it 2 in a row, try to get this road trip off on the right foot. We'll hear from Roy Smalley about the opener between the Twins and the Mariners when we come back. Is presented by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. By Dodge. Visit Dodge.com or your local dealer today. And by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, for the everyday competitor in all of us. The roof will be closed here at Safeco Field for the opener between the Twins and the Mariners. Left-hander Pat Dean will go for the Minnesota Twins, facing a former Cy Young Award winner Felix Hernandez in the opener for the Seattle Mariners. And Dick Bramer back with you at Safeco Field, joined throughout this road trip by Roy Smalley. Felix Hernandez at one point just a few years ago had the highest average fastball in the American League at just over 95 miles per hour. He doesn't throw that hard anymore, but he may be even more devastating in a hitter's frame of mind.
Doesn't have to throw that hard anymore. He has maybe the most devastating pitch in the game right now. It's a changeup that he throws about 87 miles an hour, or in other words, about as hard as Tommy Malone's fastball, and then it comes up looking like a fastball and disappears. It goes down, it goes in, it goes out, depending on which side of the batter's box. It is some kind of great pitch. The hitters just have a real hard time identifying and therefore getting any kind of wood on it at all.
So it would seem on the surface to be a really tough assignment for the Twins, and there haven't been many highlights for the Twins this year, but 2 games against former Cy Young Award winners this month where the Twins picked up a win.
They've got a chance to beat Felix. It's small, but they have a chance. They have some guys that have gotten some hits in the past, Mauer and Plouffe, to name the top 2. They'll be battling out there. It's going to be fun to watch Felix Hernandez against a Twins team that really wants to get off on the right foot on this road trip.
And Pat Dean will make the start for the Minnesota Twins, his second start of his career.
I was impressed with Pat Dean, the way he has pitched. He keeps the ball down. He moves it around. He only made 1 bad pitch in 6 innings against the Toronto Blue Jays. He's got his work cut out. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Has to be if the Twins are going to win it.
We'll see what happens here in Seattle, as the Twins would like to have a good road trip. 3 here in Seattle, 3 in Oakland, and they get to face King Felix when we come back. Reigning king of the diamond in the Emerald City, ruling with a rocket right arm, Felix Hernandez has been turning away all threats to his realm during a 12-year run in the American League. His loyal subjects continue to pay tribute to his talents and praise his accomplishments. Tonight, the Twins' task for just one night is to try to dethrone the king and make Seattle their own domain for the weekend. The Twins have won the season series with the Mariners in each of the last 3 years, but the king and his court are here to try to get this series started on the right foot for the Mariners. The area down the left field line, they go crazy after the second strike because Felix Hernandez tends to strike out a lot of guys. And Paul Molitor last year saw the Twins win 4 of the 7 games. Felix Hernandez beat them in the only time he pitched against them. The Menards batting order for the opener: Eduardo Nunez leading things off, then Brian Dozier, Joe Mauer, Miguel Sano, Trevor Plouffe has really good numbers against Felix Hernandez. Then Robbie Grossman, Byung-Ho Park, Kurt Suzuki, and Danny Santana.
King Felix on the mound. Just flat great stuff. 2 fastballs, 2 speeds of breaking ball, and a devastating changeup.
And Nunez takes strike 1. Nunez clobbered a leadoff home run in the series finale with Kansas City. Dozier backed him up with another home run. The Twins got off to a great start in the final game of the homestand, and now Nunez shoots a base hit to right field. Whenever Nunez's batting average gets down into the low 300s, it seems like he has a 2 or 3 hit game and kicks it back up in the 320 range. He has been a godsend for a lineup that has otherwise struggled to get hits and score runs.
And that base hit right there indicative of what this young man is capable of doing at the plate. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. There's no question. A lot of life in his bat, but he uses the whole field. He stays above the ball, meaning he has a good angle with his bat, hits down on it, and it just allows him to have good at-bats against just about any kind of stuff. And we saw it right there. Fastball out over the middle, out over the plate, hitting it to right field for a base hit, staying high.
Down and away to Dozier with Nunez bluffing a run towards second base, and you can see the Mariners right out of the chute have a pull shift on for Brian Dozier.
And we'll see what Brian does. You know, a lot of anxiety created when you walk up into the batter's box against Felix Hernandez, but here's Brian Dozier has been working with Tom Brunansky, hitting the ball to right field for 3 or 4 days now, very, very intensively. There's a gigantic hole to the right side with nobody out and a runner on first. What a wonderful time for Brian to continue doing what he's been working on and shoot the ball that way.
1-0 to Dozier. Nunez gets back again. Literally a 100-foot gap between Lee at first and Cano, the second baseman. Dozier hitting his 5th home run of the season 2 days ago. Chopper to short. Double play. 2 away. And Cano swats Nunez in the back. And there are 2 gone, and that'll bring up Joe Mauer.
Well, Robinson Cano, one of the best at turning it, gets rid of it quickly, guns it over. He's got a great arm and just gets Brian there by about a step.
2 down, and that'll bring up Mauer.
He can play that position. Swings the bat pretty well, too.
Joe hoping to continue to bring the batting average up. It was down in the 260s. Had a good series against the Royals. Twins as a team had maybe their best offensive series. They only won 1 ball game, but they scored enough runs to win 2, maybe 3. Pitching wasn't very good in the Kansas City series. So Mauer, whose average was down on the low 260s, has his batting average up to 276. 1 strike. And a check swing, 1-1.
That's a curveball there. We're going to see 2 different kind of fastballs, as I mentioned. He's got the 4-seam straight one. He's got a 2-seam fastball that runs away from left-handers. He's got, that was a big curveball there. He's got a slider, and then that changeup as well. There's the 2-seam fastball. 91 starts on the inside part of the plate, or just off and comes back over the plate. He'll also throw the 4-seamer in there, so you, as a left-hand hitter, you think the ball's going to move back over the plate, and then it stays riding in on you, gets in on the handle of your bat.
Fans down the left field line want a strikeout.
And
they got it. Mauer taking a fastball for a called 3rd strike, and the Twins send just 3 men to the plate in the 1st. Evening here in Seattle. In fact, we may not see the roof rolled back at all during this 3-game series. Scott Service, the new manager for the Mariners, and boy, has he helped turn things around here. The Mariners leading the American League West, and they'll come at the Twins with this Menards batting order. Nori Aoki, the center fielder, Franklin Gutierrez, Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, Dae-Ho Lee, Kyle Seager, Chris Iannetta, Stephan Romero just called up, and then Luis Sardinas.
Pat Dean on the mound for the Twins. Left-handed pitcher that pitches like a left-handed pitcher, like an awful lot of them. He needs to keep the ball down, move this fastball around. He's got a nice little, quick little slider. Main thing for Pat Dean is to keep the ball down and out of the middle of the strike zone.
Foul back, 1-1. Aoki getting the start in center field today. The Mariners put Leonis Martin, who's been a wonderful surprise for them offensively. They knew he could go get the ball out in center, but he's got a hamstring issue and he was put on the disabled list. And Aoki will get center field, and Franklin Gutierrez, who back in his day was a pretty good center fielder, will be in right and hit behind Aoki. 1-2, just off the outside corner. And Ketel Marte's got a thumb issue, went into second base head first and sprained his thumb. And two of the very pleasant surprises for the Mariners offensively are on the disabled list. Tap towards short. Nunez guns it over to Mauer, one away.
Ketel Marte, I think, is going to be some kind of good player for this club. I really like his actions at shortstop.
Northland Ford defense for the Twins with Robbie Grossman in left field, Danny Santana in center, Miguel Sano in right. Plouffe, Nunez, Dozier, Mauer the infielder, Suzuki behind the plate. And Dean hoping to do what he did so well against a really good Toronto lineup. Just seen from where I sat, he was moving the ball inside, outside, change speeds, and I don't know, I guess you said it best. He's a left-handed pitcher, which we mean with the utmost of kindness.
Absolutely. He was terrific against Toronto in exactly the way you just said, Dick. Made one mistake.
Driven to deep right field. Gutierrez with a home run to the opposite field. His third of the year. And the Mariners keep slugging the ball over the fence. That is their 66th home run this year.
Gutierrez very good against left-handed pitching. That's why he's in there, and really not too bad a pitch, but just a little bit too much of the middle of the zone. And Gutierrez is strong enough to hit the ball the other way, out of the ballpark.
So 1-0 Seattle, and now Robinson Cano. If the Mariners continue to contend and perhaps win the division, get into the playoffs, if this guy keeps swinging it the way he's been swinging it, you might be looking at the American League MVP. He has been so valuable to the Mariners. It took them a couple of years to get that type of return on their investment. But man alive, is he having a great year.
Well, if the season ended today, there'd be a dogfight of a vote between David Ortiz in Boston and Robinson Cano for MVP. I do believe.
On the outside corner, 1-1. Look at the batting average, home runs and runs batted in, our Toyota key stat.
43 runs batted in already.
Only Ortiz with more. And now owning the Toronto Triple Crown. Excuse me, Seattle Triple Crown. 2-1 to Cano. Mariners second to the Red Sox in runs scored, 221 runs now, second in the American League. But to give you some idea of what the Red Sox are doing, I mean, the Mariners opening up a lot of eyes with their lineup this year. Boston Red Sox have scored 55 more runs than the Seattle Mariners. with each team having played 46, 47 games. That's another run per game than what the Mariners are doing.
Fenway Park is 55 runs better than Safeco Field. That's a great ballpark to hit in. It really is. But that lineup in Boston has gotten really, really good. I don't know if they had any idea David Ortiz would go off the way he has it here at the beginning of the season. But Bogaerts has turned into a terrific hitter there. And Pedroia's hitting well. Travis Shaw, their whole lineup has gotten very, very offensive.
3-2 to Cano, and a ball rolled into the shift. That's Plouffe making the play on the Dozier side of second base, 2 down.
What the Mariners have going for them offensively is the middle of the lineup really, really formidable with Cano, Cruz, and Kyle Seager, who has started off horrendously but has been on fire lately. Those 3 guys have been driving in every run they looked at. They've driven in about half the Mariners' runs. It's a good middle of the order for sure.
One of the reasons Cano has had such a wonderful offensive year, he's got a very serious home run threat hitting behind him in Nelson Cruz. Dean misses down and away, ball 1. Cruz's numbers very solid. But they've got a lot of things going right here, including a 3 and 4 combo, a lefty followed by a righty, and both of them can make you pay. 2-0. Cruz last year's first year with Seattle hit over 344 home runs, 93 runs batted in.
Well, this is a big ballpark, but there aren't any ballparks in the league too big for Nelson Cruz.
Oh, what a catch by Joe Mauer. A liner headed into the right field corner, but it never got there. Mauer with a good play for the 3rd out of the inning. But Gutierrez with an opposite field home run to put the Mariners in front 1-0. Open most of the day. Mariners got a first inning run and could have gotten more if not for this play by Joe Mauer.
Ball hit hard down the right field line. Joe with cat-like instincts that are important to have at the corner positions.
Miguel Sano takes a breaking ball and strike 1. This is Sano's first game here at Safeco Field. First day in, of course, the visiting team gets the opportunity for some early hitting. Talked to Sano between the early hitting and the regular round of batting practice, and he said, oh, the ball carries well here. But given as big and strong as he is, I suspect the ball carries well everywhere for Miguel Sano. 1-1.
Watched him taking batting practice today. There's a different sound and velocity coming off of his bat than just about anybody else on the field.
Big 2-run home run in the ball game on Wednesday afternoon. He'll be followed by Plouffe and Grossman.
Oh,
high blast to deep left center field.
You can forget about that one.
Gone. A home run and the game is tied. Home run number 9 for Miguel Sano.
As I said, there's a different sound and velocity, the ball coming off his bat, and that was even from up here where we sit, that was an oh my as soon as he made contact. Watch the extension and the strength there. This ball is crushed. Oh, that was way back.
So the Twins answer something that has been a chronic problem for them, scoring first and giving back runs. Now they turn the tables on the Mariners, and that'll bring up Trevor Plouffe. For Hernandez, that's the 6th home run allowed. Trevor swings and misses 0-2. We mentioned it when we gave you the lineups. One of those things that might be hard to explain. Trevor is 6 for 11 in his matchups against Hernandez.
He's had really good success.
And another fastball taken for a strike. And I think it happened to Joe Mauer, and I think it just happened to Trevor Plouffe. The changeup that you've talked about that he hardly ever throws for a strike, and you see hitters swinging over the top of it, and now at least once in each inning he's gotten a hitter to look at a fastball right down the middle.
Yeah, this one on the inside corner, a little it looked like a little runner in there on the inside corner, but in both instances, and especially with Joe Mauer's in the first inning, you get just a little bit of a brain cramp just for a second, and he'll throw something that you can't react to, and that's he has so many pitches. If you let something creep into your mind like, well, what about this one, then there's something else on you that just freezes you.
1 strike. And Grossman now with 2 strikes, and now Grossman is where Paul Molitor said the Twins hitters have to try to avoid being up there with 2 strikes, because that's when we saw it with Mauer, we saw it with Plouffe. Grossman, of course, has no idea what's coming here.
There's a changeup right there, 88 miles an hour, and for the longest time I thought he was just throwing a sinker there. Someone had to tell me several years ago that was a changeup. I just couldn't believe it, but he throws that. I think it's a split finger. I think he or a circle change.
Right, it's a circle change, and there's another called 3rd strike. Hernandez seems a little upset. Sano hit a home run. Here's the Northland Ford defense for the Mariners. Romero just called up today. He's got left field. Aoki in center. Gutierrez in right. Seager, Sardinas, Cano, Lee, the infielders, and Chris Iannetta behind the plate. There's Byung-Ho Park.
I can't fathom how you throw a circle change 87 or 88 miles an hour. There's a slider right there. So now we've seen a curveball and now a slider. We've seen both fastballs, the straight one and the runner that got Trevor, and then that hard changeup, and that's the one that astounds me. I just can't imagine. Curveball there.
Curveball for a called strike, 1-1.
.78-mile-an-hour curveball. The slider is about 83, 84. The changeup is 87 or 88.
It's grounded just wide of the bag. A nice pickup by Seager. The third base umpire Mike Winter says it's a foul ball.
Then both of Felix's fastballs are about 91 now, but the trajectory is different. He's got a straight one and that running fastball that runs away from left-handers or in on right-handers. And you're right, you have to do the best you can. Just fight to get something to hit before you get to 2 strikes, because once you get to 2 strikes, it's nasty.
And he got a piece to stay alive.
And you see Park out in front of that pitch. It's 88 miles an hour. It's a changeup. It looks so much like a fastball coming up there, and has such late movement. Changeups, you can see a lot of times you just see this speed change. I mean, generally speaking, a pitcher will be 10 miles an hour slower with the changeup than the fastball.
In his heyday, we saw Johan Santana with a 20-mile-per-hour gap between his fastball, 94, maybe 95, and then a 74-mile-per-hour. They called it the Bugs Bunny changeup because it seemed like it never got to home plate.
But a 3 or 4 mile-an-hour difference from fastball to change is just see that ball go down as hard as it does, 88 miles an hour. It's only 3 or 4 miles an hour slower than the fastball, and he calls it a changeup. But it's like a split finger,
right.
But he throws it as a circle change with, and I've just never seen anything like it.
Full count to Park. Oh! Park got hit in the left arm, I believe. He'll take first base, and that'll bring up Suzuki.
Yeah, there was a changeup that got away from him. You saw that one didn't go down; it ran in hard. Started inside and just kept. See, it just keeps coming.
Hernandez, the 4th hit batter, and now Suzuki will bat.
Kurt with pretty good numbers against.
Yeah. A lot of time with Oakland. Of course, he caught a lot of games for the A's and had to hit against Hernandez, hitting or playing in the same division. 12 hits, 41 at bats, a home run, 3 walks. And foul to the screen, 1 strike. Mariners have the lowest team ERA in the American League at 3.20. 3 starts ago, Hernandez picked up his 2,000th major league strikeout. He's the 4th former Cy Young Award winner the Twins have faced here in the first 2 months. They lost to Justin Verlander. They beat, as we showed you, Dallas Keuchel in Houston, which hasn't happened or hadn't happened in about a year and a half. And then Corey Kluber in Cleveland. 1-1 to Kurt Suzuki. Ground ball. Nice pickup by Sardinas. A flip to second. Well, the infield grass ate that ground ball up for the 3rd out. Miguel Sano homers to tie the game. And when we come back, Tyler Duffy's nice enough to join us from the Twins dugout. We'll talk with the Twins right-hander when we come back. Against the Kansas City Royals, and Tyler Duffy picked up his 2nd win of the year. Nice enough to join us. Tyler, talk a little bit about your season so far this year. You had a spring training, and by your own admission, it wasn't the best of spring trainings. Right. But then you went down to Rochester to pitch well enough to get called back up, and and things have worked out awfully well since.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be here and help us get a chance to win. And it's always fun when you're pitching in the big leagues.
Phil Hughes making sure you don't.
And making sure I'm hydrated.
There you go. The batter is Dae-Ho Lee, 1-0 from Pat Dean. And down and away a ball, 2-0. Talk a little bit about what you learned last year when you were called up. A couple of months left to go in the season. You pitched awfully well, but what you learned that you hope will help prepare you for this year.
Just that I was capable. I came up that first start. It wasn't too great. I came back and pitched. And I think it was about 10 games, and show myself I was capable of being here and getting people out and winning games, and I think that gave me a lot of confidence coming into this season.
Sharply hit, couple of hops to Dozier, one away.
Tyler, speaking from a hitter's standpoint, so often, and we're seeing a little bit this year with some of the Twins hitters, that the second year adjustments are really, really hard to make. Pitchers start figuring the hitters out. So how would you relate that to what you're going through right now when you really kind of set the league on fire last year? And then what are the adjustments that you felt like you've had to make as hitters adjust to you?
Definitely the curveball. When I got here last year, everybody's swinging. It was kind of one of those things I could just get away with. And, even in spring training this year, I could notice a lot more guys laying off of it, looking for it. Got a lot of guys, taking some good pitches that I felt like I was throwing, and so I've had to make that adjustment and go from there. And it's pitch more at the fastball, work on the changeup a little bit more, and so I think I've tried to adjust as quickly as I could, and so far it's been all right.
How's that changeup coming along? How you feeling with that pitch?
I feel good about it. Like I've been talking to our pitching coaches, Molly, everybody. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just a it's a work in progress, and it's something I want to use, but I don't want to just throw it to throw it. I want it to be a weapon, not just a show me pitch. Something that I can get an out with when I really need one.
What about the guy throwing changeups for the Seattle Mariners tonight? When you're watching a guy like Felix Hernandez, I mean, do you not that you can copy what he does, but do you try to watch and see how he goes about his business and try to pick up little tips on a pitch that you'd like to master?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I watch our guys a lot too. Irvin and I actually have pretty similar pitches. His fastball's a little better than mine, but otherwise we throw a lot of breaking balls. We throw the same changeup grip. So I watch him throw a lot, see how he uses it, just to see different ways to use it against guys, lefties and righties. Behind in counts, ahead in counts, things like that. So I'm always trying to pick up as much as I can.
Now, are you telling us that you don't think it's possible for you to throw the King Felix 88-mile-an-hour changeup? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it would be in my best interest to throw an 88-mile-an-hour changeup. But his is good. I mean, and that goes to show you. I mean, it's not even that much of a speed difference, but he gets away with it. I mean, he's King Felix.
Pat Dean with a 1-2-3 second. And again, our thanks, Tyler. Congratulations on the win. Good luck on the next start in Oakland.
Keep it going, Tyler.
We are tied at 1 after 2.
Safeco's a lot of fun. The show that they put on for King Felix is pretty incredible. You know, they've got the King's Court down in left field, but then they've got these LED lights that are just like strobe lighting whenever he walks out. So they create a really cool atmosphere there. But it's a really cool stadium. It's a lot of fun to play in.
And as the Mariners have won more ball games this year, the crowds have reacted. 40,000 the expected attendance tonight. Here's Danny Santana. He takes inside ball one. It's also bomber hat giveaway night here at Safeco Field. Santana, then Nunez and Dozier facing Felix Hernandez. Ripped into right field, right past Lee, who seemed to react late. Now Santana digs for second, and Gutierrez's throw not in time. Now Santana hit that ball hard, but by the time Lee got his glove up, the ball had already landed in the outfield grass.
Real good swing by Danny Santana. He did hit it awfully hard, and a good gamble. You'll see the ball. See, this is what you want early in the count. First time you see a fastball from Felix in the middle of the plate, you have to be ready to hit it. Gutierrez is trying to get over there quickly, and he's got a good arm, but Danny is running hard right from the start, looking to get double with nobody out. That's a very, very good gamble, and good idea by Danny. Just get to second base with nobody out if you can. It figures to be a low-scoring game. This is somebody hit a double, get him over, get him in.
Nunez threatened the bunt, taking ball one. Now outside 2-0. Base hit in his first at bat, continuing a trend where Nunez has hit the ball very well away from target field. Coors Light cold hard fact, hitting .365 on the road this year. Now a 2-0 count from Hernandez. Bunt, and a good one. Ionetta's going to have to hurry. And Nunez beats it out. And on the play, Santana to third. A perfectly dropped down bunt. And the Twins have runners on the corners with nobody out.
Well, just a good play all around, even if it wasn't going to be a hit. You see, watch how still his head is. I really like this play. He drops it down. I'm going to get the guy over to third. And what a bonus, I get a base hit out of it. But even as hot as Eduardo Nunez is, he understands against a guy like Felix Hernandez, the most important thing is for, at the end of his at bat, that runner on second base has made it to third, one way or the other. And whatever he feels the most confident that he can get that job done. And even though he's hitting .365 on the road against King Felix, he opted to bunt the ball and get Danny to third. So good bonus for him to get a base hit out of it too.
Mariners set up their infield double play depth. Dozier hit into a double play in the first inning.
And here's where Brian, again, you really have to stay in the middle of the field, middle to center field to right center. There you go.
Drive to left center field and tag pretty well to the gap and off the wall. Santana will score. Nunez had to wait and see if that ball was going to be caught, and he'll only gain third base. Dozier jumps on the first pitch and cracks a double.
And again, like the home run the other day, I just hope Brian understands that ball to left center that he drilled right there is a result of him working so hard on staying back and letting the ball come to him and hit the ball to right field if he has to. This one he got out in front of a little bit because it was a breaking ball. It stayed in the middle of the plate. But what happens is when you're trying to pull the ball all the time, you pop that ball up, you foul it back, you're just not quite on it. When you're trying to stay in the middle of the diamond, you don't have to be as perfect. And then when you do get a hanger like that, you're much more likely to deliver. So that was really a good job of hitting by Brian, all brought about by the work he's doing trying to hit the ball the other way.
Twins have sent 11 men to the plate. Hernandez has retired just 5 of them, and now Mauer slicing a liner. That's down for a hit. Nunez will score. Dozier to third base, and the Twins ambushing Hernandez here with some first ball hitting.
Well, like we said, you can't let him get to 2 strikes. He's got too much ammo for that, and he's throwing a lot of first pitches right in the middle of the zone. Watch where this ball is to Joe. Just a breaking ball right there, and we know that Joe's going to stay in the middle of the diamond. very, very little to get Joe out with in the middle of the plate with a runner on third base. He's going to stay in the middle of the diamond. If you throw him a cookie like that, that ball's going in the air to center field. It's either going to be a sac fly or a base hit, a double in the gap somewhere, a single, like we just saw. He's not going to try to pull Felix Hernandez with a runner on third. So good hitting by the Twins now. Staying in the middle of the field and getting balls in the middle of the zone that they can handle.
Well, Stottlemyre has made his quick trip to the mound. And now here is Sano, first and third. And now the Mariners will have an infield shift on for Sano, much like the shift they had on for Dozier in the first inning. And Sano tries to jump on that first pitch and taps it foul. Sano clobbered one out by the scoreboard in left field for a game-tying home run.
I don't think there's any reason not to shift against Miguel Sano here. If he hits a ground ball, it's going to be on that side of the field most likely.
Breaking ball taken, 1-1.
We've seen him shoot some line drives to right field, but if you're setting up your infield to say where's Miguel Sano going to hit the ball on the ground, it's going to be to the left side of the infield almost exclusively.
Now 2-1. Nice pickup by Iannetta on a pitch in the dirt. Generally, how do you feel about the shifting?
I like it, actually. I actually like it because and you might think that I would. That's the way I had to play shortstop. I had to move around the field because I didn't have the greatest foot speed range. I had to do most of my range before the pitch was thrown, and it's just a question of percentages and odds. And if a guy's going to hit 9 balls out of 10 when he hits it on the ground to one side of the field, then I don't see, just because in this case the second base position normally is on the right side of second base, why you have to stay there. If you're not going to hit it over there, why stand there?
Right. 3-1 now to Sano. And ball 4. Iannetta keeps an eye on Dozier at third base, and they're loaded up with nobody out here in the third. And that'll bring up Trevor Plouffe. Plouffe called out on strikes his first time up. In case you're wondering, Hernandez's shortest start this year was 4+ innings in Oakland. The start of this month, gave up 9 hits, 8 runs, only 4 of those earned. But the Twins have a chance to really do some damage here in the third. 2 are in, and the bases are loaded with nobody out. And Plouffe with a flare to left center field. Aoki comes in, makes the catch. Dozier bluffs, and the throw right on target. Trevor didn't hit the ball very well, and Aoki, with all the momentum in the world, coming towards home plate, delivered a very strong throw, one away.
Well, you're right. He did everything right. He had good momentum and just airmailed the ball right to home plate. No real reason there to hit the cutoff man. That was going to be if Dozier decided to go, it was going to be bang bang at the plate. So he just airmail it out down there.
Grossman called out on strikes his first time up. Bases loaded now, 1 out. And he takes a strike on the inside corner. 19 at bats, 8 hits, 2 doubles, a home run, 4 runs batted in, and Grossman can deliver the biggest hit in his Twins career here in the third inning.
Look for the ball out over the plate and stay in center field. That will allow him to hit breaking ball and changeup. If he's looking for the ball in like that first pitch, I'm glad to see him take that first pitch. Look for it out over the plate. Give up the ball on the inside corner.
And now a ball, 1-1. This will be the 45th pitch already for Hernandez. Mariners staked him to an early 1-0 lead, but the lead didn't last very long, and now the Twins are hoping to put up a very crooked number here in the third. Outside, 2-1.
So you think about the weapons that the arsenal that Hernandez has. He's got 2 fastballs, 2 breaking balls, and a changeup, and the If you're looking for the ball in the inside corner, you're vulnerable to 4 other pitches.
Swing and a miss, and it's 2-2.
Out in front trying to pull that pitch. If you're looking for the ball out over the plate, trying to hit the ball to center field, you've got a chance now to drive the runner in from third. With 1 out, just hit the ball to center field. And the only pitch you're vulnerable to is the ball in the inside corner. If you're looking for it in the inside corner, you're vulnerable to everything else.
And a base hit down the right field line. Dozier will score. Mauer will score. And Sano was going to be held up. Now they're saying fan interference in the corner. Sano was being stopped by Gene Glenn, but then he came through anyway. And the ball was touched by a fan. It's a 2-run double for Grossman. And now here comes Paul Molitor. It's not a ground rule double. It's fan interference. And the Twins want to know, at least the manager wants to know, if Sano will be granted a run scored on this play. It's at the umpire's discretion. And it's not just that the fan touched it. It's when he touched it. And I think what Paul is appealing here is that the ball kind of got pinned there. Was still in play for a long time. Gene Glenn was trying to stop Sano, but he never slowed down.
Okay, just gets stuck. Then nobody touched it, but
yeah,
boy, I think that ball's in play. I don't. Gutierrez never threw up his hands. I don't know what the ground rule is. They go over the ground rules.
Yeah.
You know, before the meeting at the plate before the game.
You know, like at Wrigley Field, if the ball goes into the ivy and disappears, you see the outfielders raise their hands, and it's a double.
Right, but Gutierrez not only didn't throw up his hands, but he reached right down and picked up the ball. It didn't look like a problem.
Here's Park with 2 men in scoring position. Now the infield is in. Half swing. And ball 1. Back to a great job of hitting by Robbie Grossman. A great 2-strike approach again. Waited long enough, wasn't jumping out there on fastball too early. Waited to see the ball, let the ball come to him, and he got a changeup that he was able to stay with and just get enough of it to get it down the right field line. A huge hit for Robbie Grossman. And nearly to the backstop. A season high 5 runs allowed by Hernandez, and he still has retired only 6 batters. Park hit by a pitch, his first time up. Got a curveball. It looked like it was a hanger right there. Park tapped it foul. Mariners have activity in their bullpen. And a very rough inning for Felix Hernandez. Swing and a miss, 2-2. I'm okay with that swing right there from Park. Looking fastball, cheating a little bit, but now you can't do it with 2 strikes. You have to give up the inside pitch so that you can fight those other ones off. Fouled off a leg, I believe. No, safe. That ball is in play, and Park is tagged out. And here comes Scott Service. He's going to ask home plate umpire Mark Wegner why, if the ball didn't hit his leg, why Park didn't leave the batter's box. And I guess he's not coming out. He left his chair on the bench. It is an RBI with Sano coming in from third base. Well, here's the swing. He hits it down into the ground, and I think Byung-ho Park thinks it hits him in the toe. But no one. And there was no call made. Credit Sano for coming home. He scored a run, 2 away. I think that ball hit him in the toe. And well, why else wouldn't the man run to first base? Exactly. I mean, I think he knows that ball hit him. And it's not a reviewable play. I think Scott Service could have come out and asked Mark Wegner to check with one of the other umpires. Yep. I think you have to do that just based on the reaction of the hitter. Suzuki takes a strike.
Look at it. That's a sheepish grin right there. I think let's watch the ball hit his toe. Yep, right off the end of his toe, and he's absolutely no. There's no other reason why he wouldn't have run. And they're laughing. He goes, "Yeah, he's not hit my toe." But I wasn't going to argue. I just got an RBI.
Swing and a miss, 1-2. A 5-run inning. Last year, when Hernandez pitched against the Twins, he went the distance and shut them out.
Well, he's a bit of a different guy. He's not throwing as hard, and he's struggling a little bit today with his assortment of pitches. He's throwing a lot of pitches in the middle of the strike zone early in counts.
And the chopper in play to the third baseman Seager. And Suzuki's retired. Good inning for the Twins. They get 5 hits. More importantly, they get 5 runs, and they've got a 6-1 lead on the Kings.
On Fox Sports North is presented by CenturyLink. Switch to CenturyLink Prism TV for an advanced TV experience. Learn more at cprismtv.com.
Bat around in the 3rd inning against King Felix. And Pat Dean now has a 5-run lead. He'll face Stefan Romero, Luis Sardinas, and Nori Aoki. And there is strike 1. One strike to Romero. And a tapper fouled, 2 strikes. Dean gave up an opposite field home run to Franklin Gutierrez in the 1st inning. It is the only ball that has left the infield. And now up and in. We saw a lot of that too. Dean working inside off the plate to both right-handed and left-handed batters.
I just love that. I love that about this the young guy. He understands that he's got to pitch on both corners of the plate and get guys thinking inside so he can go back out and get them out. That's
a strikeout.
That's a nice little quick little slider. You throw a fastball, excuse me, Nick. You throw a fastball in there and for a strike, and then you're able to come in with a slider off the plate that looks like a fastball, and you get him to swing over the top of it.
Till further notice, the Twins will have as their pitching coach Eric Rasmussen, who was the minor league pitching coordinator. The Twins yesterday. Let's identify the batter here first. Luis Sardinas with 1 down. Neil Allen, the pitching coach for the Minnesota Twins, has been suspended with pay indefinitely because of a pending DWI charge. And so Eric Rasmussen, who's no stranger to the organization, has been promoted to the interim pitching coach. Down and away, it's 2-0. Dean pitching to the number 9 batter, having retired now 6 men in a row. And a called strike. Rasmussen has worked with the Twins in spring training, so whether it's Pat Dean or Tyler Duffy or Phil Hughes, he's got some background with them, and we'll get to know them all a lot better here in whatever the interim period is. 2-2.
Well, as Paul Molitor said in his meeting with all of us before the game today, Eric has been around spring training and has been around these guys as a roving instructor for a long time, and I don't think he's any stranger to any of these pitchers. So.
3-2 to Sardinas. Aoki will follow. And a foul away, and I thought Paul brought up an interesting point in meeting with the media. Said he had a number of discussions with Terry Ryan, who was in Fort Myers when the events yesterday occurred or became public. And Paul said, well, look, if you took basically what he said was, if you took the AAA guy and promoted him to the major leagues, and you took the AA guy and promoted him to AAA, it's a domino effect, and it becomes very disruptive through the chain. Driven foul. So it was determined this would be the least disruptive move to make. Full count to Dean. Or to Sardinas. And a high fastball gets him. 2 down, 3 straight strikeouts for Pat Dean.
Well, he's thrown the ball all over the perimeter of the strike zone to Sardinas, and then the one fastball spot he hasn't seen, up and over the middle of the plate, and he gets him.
Here is Aoki, hit a ground ball to Nunez his first time up. And an awkward swing, strike 1.
Ball inside. I mean, what Pat Dean is doing so far so well is in and out, up and down, moving the hitter's eyes all over the strike zone there. So up and in on the outside corner here. I mean, he is really on right now with his control.
And a base hit between Plouffe and the line. Aoki's aboard, and Grossman with the flip back to the infield, a 2-out double.
And as soon as it's out of my mouth that he's right on with his control, and he throws a breaking ball right in the middle of the plate. Aoki, a slap hitter to left, is going to wait a long time with 2 strikes. Not going to be fooled. If you're going to throw him a breaking ball there, it's got to be nasty. And this is right in that's right where Aoki wants the ball. A little slider that's right in the middle of the plate. He can just slap the ball to the left.
Aoki into second with a 2-out double, and now Franklin Gutierrez.
I've got no quarrel at all with the pitch. It's just when you got 0-2, I mean, you can throw it just about anywhere else, just not in the middle like that.
Up and away, ball 1. Gutierrez got a fastball down and away and barreled it over the fence in right field for a solo home run. Swing and a miss out in front.
Oh, good try.
Missed. Off the inside corner, 2-1.
When you show that you can pitch on the inside corner effectively or just off the inside corner so that it impresses the hitter, and you say, That ball was just barely inside, called a ball, but it looks like he can control that. It makes hitters get in a hurry. So you can see throwing the ball in there makes them vulnerable right back out there. Nice pitch.
Inside, outside.
Yep.
2-2. Big guy here for Dean to get because of who's hitting behind Gutierrez. He would love to have Robinson Cano lead off the 4th inning. Two and two. And a Tapper foul. Dean with 45 pitches thrown. Another 2-2. Fouled over the Seattle dugout. Couple of relief appearances before his start against the Blue Jays. Hoping to pick up his first major league win here today.
And look at Fox tracks there. And again, that's what we're talking about. Pitching all around the perimeter of the zone. Nothing in the middle to Gutierrez.
Got him.
Good pitch.
The 2-out double is stranded. Another good inning for Pat Dean, and the Twins lead 6-1. No surprise at all. Todd Oaks fought a valiant battle with cancer, and he passed away yesterday. The longtime University of Minnesota pitching coach, impacted so many people, including Glenn Perkins, many others. Some you've heard of, most of them you haven't, but everyone spoke so highly of Todd. We are very sorry to hear of his passing. Paul Molitor very touched by the passing of former Gopher coach Todd Oaks. First pitch is a strike to Danny Santana. Santana started the 5-run third with a double into the right field corner. Swing and a miss, 0-2. Mariners signed Hernandez to a contract extension through the 2019 season a couple of years ago. And Santana down on strikes again, looking. All the strikeouts for Hernandez, all 4 of them, have been on called third strikes. That'll get us to Nunez.
Now here's that changeup again. Throws it hard. Comes back down and back over the plate. Looked like it was going to be a fastball inside to Danny. He gave up on it.
Nunez with a solid single in the first and then a bunt single in the third. Strike one.
Started to say it's easy to understand why you would give up on that changeup. It just looks so funny coming out of to a hitter coming out of Hernandez's hand. Just doesn't look like anything that they've seen.
Hernandez coming into the game with a very good ERA of 2.21. Two strikes. And now a ball.
Another good example of how that changeup goes down. And not every trajectory on that changeup is the same. Sometimes it's more the movement's more sideways, sometimes straight down.
Another called third strike, and Nunez in disbelief chats with Mark Wagner. 2 away. You can follow Twins baseball live with the MLB.com at-bat app. Customize at-bat to feature the Twins. Stay up to the moment at any moment with Game Day. Live game video highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Download MLB.com at-bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone and tablet. Dozier takes outside, ball one. Bryan with a ground ball double play to the shortstop in the first. Then he cracked a double to the gap in left center field in the 5-run third inning. Down and away, 2-0. Two and one.
Pretty good swing and a changeup there by Bryan. He was looking 2-0. He was looking to jerk one in the left field seats, I think. And now I hope he goes back to his up the middle and right center approach. Give that a shot for a little while. It's starting to look really, really good. There you go.
Breaking ball hit on a line to the left fielder Romero. And Hernandez recovers after a bat around 5-run third. He sets down the Twins 1-2-3 in the fourth. Seattle baseball night in America returns tomorrow. A battle between the Dodgers and the Mets. All tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central, only on Fox. We'll watch it live on Fox Sports Go. And then about the time that game ends, we'll have game 2 here from Seattle. Phil Hughes will go against Wade Miley, who face a left-handed starter in Miley. Robinson Cano will, as Dean hoped in the third inning, lead off the fourth. Then Nelson Cruz and Day-Ho leads. Cano lifts it to right center field and deep. Santana racing to the gap and can't make the play. And Cano wants 3. And he's got an opening triple here in the 4th inning on a ball that I think Danny Santana thinks he should have caught. Streaking to the gap and looked like he got there.
Yeah, I think he did get there. And I'm wondering if the presence of that big body from right field coming over there after him lost his concentration just a little bit. Sano goes down and gets a breaking ball away. Pretty good swing. Danny gets there, looks like. Now there's big Miguel Sano running right by him. And I just wonder if that made him take his eye off the ball just for a second. Looked like it, potentially, because he definitely got there. He went a long way, took a really good route, got all the way there, and just couldn't corral it in his glove.
Infield back for Cruz. And ball 1.
And here's the situation now. If you're Pat Dean, you're on the mound, you have a 5-run lead. Chances are that guy on third is going to score. So work one hitter at a time, get an out, 1 out at a time. If the runner scores, the runner scores.
For the third and firing across. That's Eduardo Nunez at third base. Nunez is at third. Trevor Plouffe is out of the ball game. And Eduardo Escobar is at short. So at least on the first out, Cano's still stuck at third base. Plouffe with 2 at bats was called out on strikes in the second, hit a fly ball to center. And we'll try to get an update as to what happened to Plouffe. 1 away. Here's Day-Ho Lee and a ground ball to Dozier his first time up. First pitch strike.
My point here for Pat Dean is don't pitch yourself into a big inning trying to save that run at third. Take 1 hitter at a time. Don't walk anybody and stay out of the middle of the plate. Don't worry about having to make great pitches to keep the runner on third. If he scores, he scores. Then you still got a 6-2 game. But stay away from the big inning right here.
1-1 to Lee. Seager will follow. 2-1. How about the pitch Cano hit? I don't think it was a strike. It was down and away, and he whipped the barrel around and drove it to the gap in right center field.
He's a great hitter. He's got a terrific swing.
2-1. Splintered bat and the base hit to right. Cano will score, and it's 6-2. The bat split lengthways, and Cano comes in from third base.
I'm not exactly sure. I thought originally they got the ball way off the end of the bat that made it shatter like that, but I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it was just really bad wood. But anyway, good pitch by Dean. Just happened to find a hole. Now go right back to work on this left hand.
Seager with a ground ball to Mauer his first time up. Seager hitting 175 against lefties.
Right.
Over 300 against righties.
That's why you get in a situation like this. You just have to punish this guy with good stuff. He doesn't swing well against left-handers. And that's what you don't want to do. Give a guy that's hitting 175 against left-handers a chance to hit 2-0 where you have to come in with something.
Mariners have hit for the cycle against Dean. 4 hits, a home run, triple, double, and single. And an off-speed pitch tickling the outside corner, 2-1. Just off the edge, and now it's 3-1. Ryan on deck.
So we'll see what he and Kurt Suzuki decide to do here. He threw a slider 2-0 in a fastball count. Got Seager fooled, had him take it. Now it's 3-1. See what he comes back with here.
High fly center field. And Santana waits and waits and waits. Out number 2. I'll bring up Iannetta. They say here in Seattle that Iannetta has done a great job behind the plate for the Mariners, handling this pitching staff. We mentioned they've got the lowest team ERA in the American League. And the Twins think he's the second coming of Johnny Bench. Last year, Iannetta hit 10 home runs all year long, and he hit 4 of them in just a handful of games against the Twins. Checks his swing and takes a strike. Iannetta called out on strikes his first time up. And now a half swing, strike 2.
And see, that's that little slider, that quick little slider, and what he's been able to do to get right-hand hitters to swing at that pitch right there is pitch effectively inside with the fastball. So they know it's coming in there. They start to jump out on the fastball, and it dives below their bat.
1 and 2.
You can't do that. You can't get right-handers to swing at that slider down and in if you haven't shown that you can throw the fastball inside. I'm going to try to hit the outside corner after coming in, try to strike him out outside. There it is. Nice job.
That's pitching. A leadoff triple does score at 6-2 as we head to the 5th.
We go to the top of the 5th, and one thing that you have to do against Felix Hernandez is you got to try to get him early, and you have to try to hit mistakes, and that's what the Twins have done. Brian Dozier with a double on a hanging breaking ball. Joe Mauer followed with a RBI base hit on a high changeup, and then Grossman getting a 2-strike changeup in the middle of the plate and driving in runs with the double. That's what the Twins did very, very well in the 3rd inning. Early in the count, getting balls right in the middle of the strike zone and doing something with it.
Mauer tries to deliver a hit on the first pitch and instead taps out to Cano, 1 down. And that'll bring up Miguel Sano.
So this is really the keys of the game, as we talked about what to do against Felix Hernandez. Eliminate some of the pitches. He's got 5 of them, so don't look for everything. Look for something that you know you can hit. 1 or 2 pitches in the middle of the plate, and then when you get it, don't miss it. And that's what the Twins were able to do in that big 5-run 3rd inning. They were getting the ball in the middle of the plate, looking to hit it in the center of the diamond, and they batted around. Really, really quality at bats up and down the lineup against a really, really good pitcher. They just didn't allow him to get in a rhythm where he could expand the zone. When they threw it in the middle, they hit it.
On the outside corner, strike 1-1. I think I've established with our viewers over the years the only thing I know about hitting is which end of the bat to grab.
And that it was hard to do.
And it took me a couple of years to figure that out. 1-1. Moving to right. Retreating is Gutierrez. That ball at the wall, and he caught it right at the fence. Gutierrez, who hit a home run to the almost same spot on the field, ends up catching Sano's drive on the warning track. 2 down.
I can't believe how far Miguel Sano hit that ball when it looked like, watch how far this ball gets in on it. That ball, he's beaten on that pitch. He had no extension. That ball goes right to the fence. Gutierrez, it's off the wall and almost a home run on a ball that Miguel Sano was absolutely beaten on. A fastball that got in on him. That is some strength right there. And actually, that's a great out at bat for Miguel Sano. I hope he pays attention to that one and see how he does not have to be in a hurry and jump out to hit everything in left field. He can hit the ball out anywhere. No ballpark's too big for him. No field is too far for him.
Now a broken bat roller to Cano, and the Twins are down 1-2-3 for the second inning after the 5-run third. North is presented by Northland Ford. Visit northlandford.com and your local Northland Ford dealer today. And by Grand Casino. The best stories start here. Pepsi fans of the game enjoying the proceedings so far. Twins fans here at Safeco Field with the Twins enjoying a 6-2 lead. Stefan Romero will lead things off in the 5th for the Mariners. Twins with a run in the 2nd and a 5 spot in the 3rd. And King Felix predictably responding after that 5-run inning by having a pair of 1-2-3 innings. And now Dean, to a lesser degree, hopes to do the same thing here. Gave up a couple of hits and a run in the 4th. Would like to have another 1-2-3 inning like the one he had in the 2nd. 1-1. Romero just called up Leonis Martin on the disabled list with a hamstring injury suffered in Wednesday's game. 2-1. Romero nearly got a job out of spring training with the Mariners. Dae-Ho Lee ended up beating him out. And Romero, more of a utility player, can play the infield some. Out in left field in tonight's game. High fly left field. And Grossman comes over and in. 1 away. Target Field's a great place to spend time with the people who are important to you. Groups are eligible for discounts on tickets, and per ticket fees are eliminated. So organize your group of 25 plus today. Learn more by visiting twinsbaseball.com twins.com/groups or call 833-TWINS. Ask about a Twins target field group outing. One down in the fifth, and now Luis Sardinas went down swinging his first time up. Just off the outside corner, ball one. So he missed on the outside corner. We'll see where pitch number 2 is. It may be targeted for the inside corner. Ended up throwing it down the middle, but got a swinging strike.
Well, you've heard of the no doubles defense. We're in the no walks pitching department right now, and Pat Dean, as good a control as he has, the one thing that he can't do is give anybody a free pass. Just make everybody swing the bat now. 6-2 lead.
70 pitches, 43 strikes. 9 for 18 in first pitch strikes. Foul away.
He has a very, very simple delivery. His pitching mechanics are really conducive to being able to throw the ball where he wants to throw it. I think the reason he's been effective since he's been in the big leagues at throwing on both sides of the plate is because it's an uncomplicated and very fundamentally sound delivery. Ooh, good pitch, good. Try to hit the inside corner, just missed. But you see him most times, and you can't throw the ball. Nobody can throw the ball where they want to all the time. But if he's trying to hit the inside corner, it's generally either there or just inside. And same with outside corner, either there or just outside.
Flared foul.
And that's the key to pitching, really. I mean, is to, when you miss trying to go for the corner, you miss off the plate and not back over the middle. Not going to happen all the time. Nobody's perfect. You're going to throw some balls down the middle of the plate. But to the degree that you look for the outside corner and either hit it or off the plate or inside corner, hit it or inside of that, you're going to be effective.
And a fastball at 90. Strikes out Sardinas for the second time.
So he's throwing it inside, outside, and then again, the same place we struck Sardinas out the first time, a high fastball. Again, moving the hitter's eyes around the strike zone and then sneaking one by him up in the zone.
Talked a little bit about this independent of or before his first start and then after his first start with Pat about how something clicked last year. He had about 600 professional innings under his belt, an opponent batting average of around 300. Ball one, now ball two. And then somehow, for some reason, last year, won 12 ball games, an ERA of 2.82, and an opponent batting average of 254. Now, granted, that was AAA. And Aoki takes a strike, 2-1. Cut his walks down, and that's what we've noticed here. When he's had to throw a strike, he's thrown a strike. Last year, 179 innings and only 36 walks. Now 3-1, and Gutierrez on deck.
You know, and it can't be overstated how important that is not to walk people. And I don't care what level of baseball you're playing. If you walk people, you're going to get beat. It's just the way it is. This game is.
Back to Dean. And he put together a nice 1-2-3 fifth. And the Twins carry a 6-2 lead into the sixth.
the top of the 6th. Twins fans, don't forget at Twins home games, bring your Circle Me signs, and if you get circled, you may find yourself in the Minnesota Lottery winner's circle where you could win $100 worth of scratch-off lottery tickets courtesy of the Minnesota Lottery.
Great town, Hastings, Minnesota. Robbie Grossman will lead off the 6th against Hernandez on the first pitch. Changeup rolled weakly to second, one quick out. Well, it is something the Twins exploited in the 3rd inning, but since then Hernandez has used the Twins' aggressiveness against them. He's retired 7 men in a row. Carsoup.com trivia question. Since 2009, who is the only pitcher to have more starts of 8 or more innings and less 1 run or less of support than Felix Hernandez? I'm going to say it's Jose Quintana of the White Sox, because he's probably the best pitcher most people haven't heard of, because the White Sox typically haven't scored many runs for him. Excuse me, I misunderstood the question completely. It's runs allowed. Still might be Jose Quintana.
That's not Quintana.
2-0. Park hit by a pitch, and then probably the weirdest RBI he's gotten in his professional career.
He was hit by a hit pitch and then hit by a swing.
Fouled a ball apparently off his toe, but I think Park's the only one in the ballpark who was aware of it. The ball bounced to Seager. Sano alertly came home and scored. He
did it again.
So maybe I can get a hit that way. Sano scrambled in from 3rd and scored. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune beat writer here in Seattle, Phil Miller, said, when's the last time you saw entered into your scorebook 5-2 with an RBI? Foul ball. The throw from Seager to Iannetta, and then Iannetta tagged Park, who was still standing near home plate.
The only thing that I would tell you about that is that the hitter will tell you what happened.
Another chopper foul.
The hitter will always tell you what his behavior, his immediate reaction will always tell you what actually happened.
I'll see now if I'm the Twins and I have a little kangaroo court after the Twins win today, I find Park for not running out of the box.
No question. No question.
2-2. Check swing and a foul. Nine in a row set down by Hernandez, the last batter to reach Grossman with his double. Knocked down, picked up, and Park will get I'm guessing a base hit. A sinking line drive, and Sardinas tried to field it on the backhand side, and there's a runner aboard with 1 out.
Tough one hopper in between hop. Almost comes up with a really nice play. If that ball had stuck in his glove, we'd have been talking about what a good play it was. Just couldn't quite pick up that little kind of in between a short hop and an in betweener.
Park does get an infield hit, and now here's Suzuki. A couple of ground balls to the left side for Suzuki. A belt high strike. Inside 1-1. Twins trying to beat their 3rd former Cy Young Award winner this year, having beaten Keuchel and Kluber, losing to Verlander. Didn't face Scherzer in the National Series. Swing and a foul. 1-2.
You mean the Twins struck out 42 times in 3 games against the Nationals and Scherzer wasn't involved?
1-2. Down and away, 2-2. Driven deep to left, but foul in the middle of the Kings' corner.
I'm really starting to feel like it's important for the Twins to put up some kind of other number here this inning, next inning. Give the Mariners another number to look at rather than that same 6 that's been up there now for the 4th inning. Sometimes a game goes like that where you score a bunch of runs and then stop. And then it shifts a little bit.
Pop up short right field. Gutierrez comes in. Out number 2. In honor of Memorial Day weekend, Fox Sports Supports is proud to team up with merging vets and players dedicating to ensuring our nation's warriors can be as productive off the field as they were on it by joining combat veterans with former athletes to form a common bond over dedication and teamwork. Visit foxsportsupports.com to learn more. Danny Santana doubled to start the 5-run 3rd inning. Fouled back. Was looking forward to driving by the Snelling Cemetery, Fort Snelling Cemetery, on the way to the charter terminal yesterday, and although the flags weren't out there yet, just to see all the men and women who've sacrificed so much on Memorial Day weekend. In the dirt, 1-1. Remember years ago we flew back from a road trip on Memorial Day. Must have been the Sunday night, I would guess, but the flags were on all the grave markers, and it was one of the most patriotic things I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's so moving. Such a moving sight and tribute.
Swing and a foul, and it's 1-2.
Danny may or may not get a hit here this time up against Felix Hernandez, but it's nice to see his whole body language. When he's at the plate now, totally different. He looked like the guy from 2 years ago when he had supreme confidence in his ability to hit.
This guy's tough to hit.
Yeah, I mean it has nothing to do with that statement had nothing to do with what he was going to do against Felix.
Still 6-2. Something to smile about, the Twins starting pitcher, who's done a great job moving the ball in and out, up and in, and front and back.
No question about that. He's freezing guys on the inside part of the plate, throwing little sliders below their bats, going back outside. He's had very, very good command with his fastball on the perimeters of the strike zone, all well for 5 straight innings now. Very, very nicely done.
Franklin Gutierrez will lead off the 6th inning. And Robinson Cano and Nelson Cruz.
Yeah, and I think as good as Pat Dean has been for 5 innings, this is the critical inning right here with this part of the lineup coming up. If he can get through this inning with the Twins still with a relatively commanding lead, then I think they're in good shape. This is a big inning right here.
Gets ahead of Gutierrez quickly, 0-2. Mariners have 4 hits, a single, a double, a triple, a home run. One thing I appreciate, I think most fans do, is tempo out there on the mound. Gets the ball back from the catcher, and he'll paw at the dirt here a little bit this time, but he's kept things moving along, doesn't dawdle between pitches. 1-2 to Gutierrez. And now missing inside.
Well, I agree with you. I think a pitcher that works fast is a benefit to everybody on the field, including himself. Just keep coming at the hitters. Keep the pressure on.
Gutierrez got a piece to stay alive. From Waterbury, Connecticut. Told us during the interview the other day in the dugout that he grew up a big Yankee fan. And I asked him specifically about facing Robinson Cano. He says, yeah, he's a great hitter. He's really looking forward to pitching to him, and he'll get another chance at him here after the Gutierrez at bat. Swung on and missed, a strikeout.
Slider with 2 strikes, all set up by his ability to pitch inside to Gutierrez. Gutierrez in a hurry with that fastball, and now gets out in front and over the top of the slider. And he doesn't swing at that ball if Dean has not set him up inside with a fastball.
Cano with a ground ball to Plouffe, who was then in the ball game playing on the right side of the infield in the 1st inning, and then a breaking ball down and away. I don't even think it was a strike. And he cracked a triple to the gap in right center off the glove of Santana. Ball 1 inside. High fly to right center field. And Sano retires Cano. 2 down.
And he got in on Robinson Cano, a very, very good hitter, as we know. And he was ahead in the count. Came right in on his fist and jammed him. Very, very impressive for a left-hander pitcher who throws 91 miles an hour to be working the inside part of the plate against both left-handers and right-handers as effectively as Pat Dean is tonight.
Here is Cruz. In 2014, Dean was sent back to Double-A from Triple-A. And he did not have a good year. An ERA of just under 5. Opponent batting average of .320. And last year, 27 starts at Triple-A, and he may have turned his career completely around. 1-1. Stepped up a level and cut his opponent batting average by about 70 points. 2-1.
Well, I don't know what he did to make that improvement. And you mentioned it, cutting down on the walks. That's the biggest thing. I have to believe that he was able to find control of the strike zone, like that pitch right there. I got to believe that he has all of a sudden thrown far fewer pitches in the middle of the strike zone than he ever did before. If you don't walk anybody and you cut down on the balls in the middle of the strike zone, you're going to do a lot more.
Deep to the right field corner, slicing near the pole, and foul. 2-2 to Nelson Cruz. Got him with a high fastball. What a night for Pat Dean. A 6-2 lead after 6 here in Seattle. And in the first inning, Franklin Gutierrez went oppo. Hit a home run to put the Mariners up 1-0. And then Miguel Sano, leading off the second, tied it up with a long home run to left center field. And then the fun started in the third inning. Brian Dozier with a double. And then Joe Mauer with an RBI single. Robbie Grossman drove in a couple of runs with a double. And incredibly, the Twins had a 5-run third inning, taking a 6-1 lead to the bottom of the inning. Pat Dean's been outstanding. He's got 8 strikeouts through 6 innings. He's given up just 4 hits. And at least in terms of effectiveness and perhaps even in duration, he has outpitched King Felix, because the Mariners now in the 7th go to their bullpen. Eduardo Nunez will lead things off against Joel Peralta. Nunez with 2 hits, one of them a bunt single, and he takes outside ball 1.
Well, Peralta, part of a vastly improved Mariner bullpen. They have really been a surprise this year, and part of the reason why the Mariners are in first place in the West.
1-1. There's Dean with the hoodie up. No activity in the bullpen. Looks like he'll get the 7th inning. Foul back. Hacked by Eduardo Nunez. Well, the Twins looked at 2015 as maybe a stepping stone, an encouraging year, 83 wins, and it's obviously been a huge disappointment this year. The Mariners kind of went through that last year. In 2014, they were 12 games above 500, and people thought, well, this is a team to watch. And then they fell out of the gate and ended up 10 games below 500 last year and have rebounded this year. And of course, that's the hope for Twins fans, that whatever the record is this year, the Twins will rebound again next year. Cano leading the way this year offensively because he's healthy.
Yeah, he is totally healthy for the first time in a while, and hitting like the Mariners dreamed that he would when they signed him to a big contract as a free agent. He is some kind of good player, and he is leading the way.
Little pop up short center, long run for Aoki, and a nice catch by Cano in center field. That looked like a center fielder's catch to make, but Cano raced out there to make it instead. One down. Carsoup.com trivia question. The only pitcher to have more starts of 8 or more innings and 1 run or less allowed than Felix Hernandez. David Price.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. David Price. I have no idea.
Clayton Kershaw.
Oh, sure. Well, I thought we were talking about the American League.
I did too.
Come on.
I did too. So we get a pass on that one. Here's Dozier. Pulled the ball 3 times, twice hard, once for a double, once for a lineout. And a strike on the outside corner. Twins with 5 runs on 5 hits in the 3rd inning. Pop up behind first. And Lee and Cano again makes the catch. Had a longer run on that one than he did on the one in short center field. 2 down. I don't think Lee was going to get there.
No. Look at see, Cano didn't even look at the first base. He turned around to see if Gutierrez could get there, and then said, "Well, that's mine. I know I'm the only guy left."
2 down, and now we'll see if Mauer can hit a little pop fly into short left field, and Cano can track that one down. He's got one in short center, got one in short right. Mauer with a 1-for-3 night. Down and in, ball 1. Out hitting the Mariners 8-4, continuing a, I won't call it a trend, but the Twins over the last 4 ball games have swung the bats better than any other 4-game sequence they've had this year. Well, no one's suggesting that Robbie Grossman is going to have the same impact on this Twins team as, well, years ago Shannon Stewart was given a lot of credit for improving everyone's at bats just by coming into the leadoff spot and just being a professional, giving a professional at bat time after time. And Grossman's pretty much done that in a handful of games, and probably just a coincidence, but the Twins are having better at bats. Strike on the outside corner.
You know, it may be a coincidence. It may not. They may have watched the at bats. I agree with you. I think Robbie Grossman has had the most consistently good at bats. You know, one after the other of anybody on the team since he's been here. It may or may not be a coincidence, but just having another guy in the lineup that to produce.
Driven to left center field and deep to the gap. It is back and it is gone. A home run. Mauer into the bullpen. His 4th of the year, and the Twins, as you suggested, changed the number.
That's a huge turn of events right there for the Twins, positively for Pat Dean to get through the Cano Cruz part of the lineup in the 6th, and for Joe to put another number on the board with that swing. Fastball down the middle. Watch how still his head is. And shades of the old Joe here, the former Joe, being able to hit the ball a long way to the opposite gap. What a good swing.
Here is Sano. Over for strike 1. It's the 6th home run allowed by Peralta in less than 20 innings. Yikes. One and one. Sano with a home run to left center in the 2nd, walked and scored in the 3rd, hit a warning track fly ball to right in the 5th. I'll go back to having a chat with Sano today, and so what do you think of this ballpark? First time you've been here. And they said, oh, the ball carries really well. It's the first time I've ever heard a hitter say that about this ballpark.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, I watched him in batting practice. Some of the places he was depositing baseballs, it did look like it carried very well. No, it didn't look like it. When he hit it, it carried very well.
Tank, strike 2.
So now Miguel Sano with 2 strikes has to take a cue from the ball. He hit a long way to right field the time before. Don't be in a hurry here. Let the ball come to you. Don't worry about left field. If you want to hit the ball out of the ballpark, hit it over the right center field fence.
Laced into center field at base hit. Ball left the infield in a hurry.
Yes, it did.
Sano stinging the ball in his first game at Safeco Field, and that'll bring up Eduardo Escobar. We know many of you are curious, and we wish we could answer the question, but we do not know yet to this point why Trevor Plouffe left the ballgame. And on cue, the press box just announcing that Trevor Plouffe has a mild sprained knee. So Plouffe leaving the game with a knee injury.
Yeah, medial collateral ligament they're saying, and I'm trying to think of how he might have done that.
One and now up and away 2-0. Escobar's first at bat was in the 5th inning. He hit a ground ball to Cano.
Somehow Trevor hurt his knee swinging, or he did it. He didn't do it in the field. I don't believe he didn't have a play in the field.
2-1. Fastball, swing and a miss, 2-2.
Here's where I think the shift has changed. I think before you had 2 strikes, a bunt would be in order right here for Eduardo.
Little pop fly left side. Cardenas will give way to the left fielder Romero, and that ends the inning. A run for the Twins. Sano left the board, and it's 7-2. Pat Dean hoping to pick up his first major league win here tonight in tonight's T-Mobile greater coverage of baseball. some earlier games because we're out here and everything's earlier than out here. Baltimore beating Cleveland. And Kansas City beating Chicago. The White Sox continue to struggle a little bit. Royals came back from a 5-1 deficit to beat the White Sox. And the Twins will go to Oakland from here. The Tigers are shutting out the A's as we speak. A's tied for last in the American League West with Houston. Pat Dean out there to pitch here in the 7th inning, and a sinking line drive off the bat of Lee for a quick first out in the 7th. One down, and that'll bring up Seager. We have a ways to go, admittedly, but we made a point in the beginning of saying, well, yeah, Twins have a chance because they played their best games perhaps against two former American League Cy Young Award winners in Dallas Keuchel in Houston and Corey Kluber in Cleveland. If this happens, if Dean ends up winning the ball game here tonight, that's just part of the story. In Houston, Jose Barrios got his first major league win in beating the reigning Cy Young Award winner. And here tonight, Felix Hernandez against Pat Dean.
How would you have handicapped that, going as well as Hernandez has pitched against the Twins? And I think the best ERA in history against the Twins or something like that. I mean, in the history of the Twins franchise, it belongs to Felix Hernandez. You know how difficult it's going to be, and the Twins have taken some really good at bats against him.
Fly to left, and Grossman's in the vicinity, out number 2. Well, they scored 6 runs against Keuchel and the Astros, 6 runs against Kluber and the Indians, 7 so far tonight. June 8th is Superhero Night at Target Field. You were a big Mighty Mouse guy, weren't you?
I was.
A limited number of superhero theme night ticket packages are available that include a game ticket and a Twins superhero t-shirt. For every ticket purchase, the Twins will donate a Twins superhero cape to a child at Gillette Children's Hospital, and a portion of each ticket will go to Gillette Specialty Healthcare. Go to twinsbaseball.com, Superhero Night, to learn more. To the right field corner, and Sano almost overran it, but he caught it, and Dean has a very quick 1-2-3 7th inning, and he and the Twins
had it all the way.
And pitching coach Eric Rasmussen, just a smile and nothing more than that, leading us to believe that There's a decent chance Pat Dean's going to be sent out there in the 8th inning. You think?
I think he deserves it.
Had a quick 7th.
The 7th inning was big for him. The manager and the pitching coach are going to be watching carefully how he pitched in the 7th, and he just breezed through it. So,
now that said, it looks like Ryan Presley is going to get loose down in the bullpen. Robbie Grossman takes a strike from Steve Johnson, who's the latest Seattle reliever. Johnson's pitched well here in his 8 prior games, and Grossman takes strike 2. A 2-run double in the 5-run 3rd inning against King Felix. Turned him away, and that hit him. And Grossman was on his way to first. Home plate umpire Mark Wagner says, "Oh, wait a minute." Now, hit by pitches can be reviewed. Originally, when they set up the replay system, hit by pitches were not supposed to be reviewed. And I don't know that that angle is going to conclude anything. Now, it is the 8th inning. The Twins could use a review and still would have the ability to review something later on if they had the challenge denied.
He must have just got nipped his shirt there. I would tell you again. You watch the hitter's reaction. The hitter will tell you what happened. That grazed the top of his the sleeve of his jersey there, I think. And the only reason I think that is because of Robbie's reaction.
Well, if you're going to wonder why Park didn't leave home plate because the ball hit his foot, the converse of that would be a batter who immediately went to second or first because he thought the ball hit him.
There's no hitter that's going to start running down to first base.
Last year we saw Gene Segura do that, and the ball missed him by 6 inches.
Well, no, let's put it this way: there's no self-respecting hitter that's going to run down to first base if he wasn't really hit.
Well, the fans here at Safeco Field don't think that Grossman was hit, and at best it was a glancing blow.
It was. I think it got the sleeve of his jersey, but you see that the immediate reaction as they're showing it on the big screen here. His immediate reaction was no doubt in his mind. I was hit by the pitch. I'm gonna go down to first. And
well,
Robbie Grossman's not the kind of guy that has that in his mind. The only way you go down there immediately like that is, as we watch here again, he spins around. I think it got him on the sleeve, and he's absolutely convinced. You would have to have that in your mind before you ever walk in there.
I don't think they're going to overturn it.
No, I don't think so either.
And the count is 1-2. There was no apparent deflection of the ball. Iannetta caught it cleanly.
They couldn't overturn it, but I know that Robbie Grossman knows in his mind that the ball made contact with some part of him, whether it's uniform or something.
A bemused look on his face, so he'll just step up there and hit a home run. He takes outside 2-2. A week or so ago, I guess we were on the road, so it must have been more than a week ago. 2-2 to Grossman. 3-2. And we were watching on one of the classic sports channels replay of Game 7 of the '87 World Series, and there were a couple of plays in the middle innings. I was glad there was not replay. And Grossman will go to first on a walk, because there were a couple of plays in Game 7 that could have gone, probably should have gone the Cardinals' way. A close play at first, a couple of them at first. Joe McGrain dragging his spikes across the first base bag. But then, as a Twins fan and later an employee, I'm remembering game 163 where that classic regular season game, the winner advances to the playoffs and the loser goes home. Brandon Inge was hit by a pitch with the bases loaded. And if there had been replay in effect for that game, the Tigers would have taken the lead at least, and very likely would have won the ball game. One strike to Byung-Ho Park. Swing and a miss. Park hit by a pitch. Drove in a run with that weird play where he appeared to foul the ball off his toe, but Sano scampered in from third base. And then an infield single in the 6th. Up and away. Been a couple of weeks since Parks last hit a home run. Hit one in Cleveland. Off the end of the bat, a spinner staying foul. 1-2. Miguel Sano had a drought like that. I think it was about 2.5 weeks. And then he hit one, and then hit one immediately, and has now hit home runs in each of his last 2 games. Tied with Park for the team lead with 9. Fastball gets him. 1 away. And that'll bring up Kurt Suzuki. Twins fans, if you can't catch the games on TV, you can stream them live on your mobile device with the all-new Fox Sports Go app. Download the app and take Fox Sports North and Twins baseball with you wherever you go. Here is Suzuki 0 for 3. And the average down to 204. Facing a left-hander, Wade Miley, tomorrow. We would anticipate Suzuki catching tomorrow night as well.
Yeah, I imagine Kurt will get tomorrow against a left-hander, and then Centeno will get the day game after the night game, most likely, on Sunday.
Foul ball into the seats, 2 strikes with 1 out. The way Presley's warming up, pretty good bet that Dean is done for the night.
Yeah, I think he is. He's thrown 98 pitches. I think he deserves to get the chance to go back out there on the one hand, but he has pitched them through the 7th inning. He's got a lead. He's thrown 98 pitches. It's probably I think Paul Molitor's decision is Suzuki takes a pitch on the outside corner for strike 3. Paul's decision is, you've done your job for us, young man, tonight. Great work. We'll let the bullpen take it from here. And as Johnson paints the outside corner on Suzuki.
And that'll bring up Danny Santana. And just a footnote about Dean. Essentially, he's here because Tommy Milone is not. Tommy Malone's at AAA, and they just kind of switched spots. The 2 left-handed pitchers did. And Milone was having a terrible time, mainly the 3rd time through the order. Sometimes even the 2nd time through the order. Now you look at your score sheet. And 3rd time through the order, Dean retired all 7 batters he faced. Fouled over the Twins on deck circle. 2 strikes now to Santana. And 6 outs away from his first major league win. Oh, 2 to Danny Santana. Another strikeout for Santana, his 3rd after his leadoff double in the 5-run 3rd inning. Bottom of the 8th we go. Twins up 5. That it has, Tom. Thank you. Miguel Sano with a home run. 7 really good innings by Pat Dean, and now the 8th belongs to Ryan Presley. Romero, Sardinas, and Aoki scheduled to bat. Romero 0 for 2. Strikeout and a fly ball to left. Strike 1 from Presley. Turner's very high on Romero. This is his 3rd stint with the Mariners, 3rd year where he spent some time with the major league club. In 2014, 177 at bats, he hit only 192. Last year, 21 at bats, he hit 190. Had a really good spring training, as we said. Presley ahead of him, 0-2, and dug out by Suzuki.
Ryan Presley with good stuff. He's throwing hard. He's got 93 to 95 or 6 on the fastball. He's got a good curveball and slider. Most important thing for Ryan Presley right now: strikes, strikes, strikes. Nobody walks, and try not to fall behind. Give guys a chance. Oh, that's a nasty pitch. So he throws 2 strikes at 95 and 96, and then drops a pretty good hook right there for strike 3. Watch this curveball right here. It's in the perfect spot, and it's a late, sharp, downward breaking curveball. Look at where Fox Tracks has it right on the corner. That's pretty unhittable after getting the ball thrown by you at 95. That's the thing about Ryan Presley. He got good enough stuff to be very effective if he can control the strike zone.
Sardinas has struck out twice. The fans, for whatever reason, using their cell phones to illuminate Safeco Field.
Getting ready for fireworks, I think.
There are fireworks after the game tonight. 1 strike to Sardinas.
Oh, it's really cool.
Swinging a foul. 5 pitches, 6 pitches, 5 strikes for Presley.
Good curveball in the same spot to the right-hander, down and into the left-hander. You know, I like the idea of the cell phone lights way better than the wave.
We had that earlier.
We had that. I like their decision here.
I always thought that whoever invented the wave
wasn't a baseball fan.
Wasn't a baseball fan, but they missed out on a great opportunity to evacuate the building. If you just stood up to wave and moved 1 seat over. And you started by the 4th inning. By the end of the game, there'd be an orderly exit outside the ballpark. 1-2. Wow. Presley with a wicked breaking ball. And he's fanned 2 batters very quickly here in the 8th inning.
That's a good breaking ball. It's especially good breaking ball 0-2. Throw it right down there. See if he'll chase. You got plenty of options if he doesn't. If he does offer at it, you're going to strike him out down there. Again, Ryan Presley, good stuff. Throw it over.
Here's Aoki. Just missed. Ball 1. Center field. Sano and Santana, and the big man catches it, and Presley has a 1-2-3-8. It has been a really good night for the Minnesota Twins. 10 more hits, 7 runs. Sano's hit a home run. Twins, they didn't knock out King Felix early, but they put a 5 spot on him in 1 inning in the 3rd inning. Now Eduardo Nunez, who has 2 hits, dropped a bunt single down in the that was probably a more important bunt single than you would think. Breaking ball left up high. It came after a Santana double, and then the Twins went double, single, walked, and then an out in Grossman's 2-run double. But that single really helped open up the inning. 2-1.
A bunch of really good quality at bats in the 3rd inning by Twins hitters against King Felix that broke the game open. Really good ones.
Those 4 hits that started the inning were on what, 5 or 6 pitches?
Yeah, all early in the count. Guys ready to hit something in the middle of the zone. And you know, when you get a guy with King Felix's stuff, as Nunez strikes out, but you get a guy with King Felix's stuff, and you get balls in the middle of the plate. If you don't hit them, you're going to get beat. And that's just the way it is. You've got to take advantage when a guy like that makes mistakes. You can't make the mistake of taking it or fouling it back. And the Twins hitters were ready. They got the pitches and made him pay.
Dozier contributed a double in that 5-run inning. 1 for 4 on the night. And strike. Mauer will follow.
Brian took a shot there at left field, and I'd love to see him try to shoot the ball to the right center field gap.
Checked his swing, 1-1.
He and Tom Brunansky working on it very hard. Bruno adamant that you're trying to hit the ball to right field. You just wait on the ball longer. You watch the ball travel. You see it better. I think that's the reason why he's hit the ball hard twice on breaking balls.
Popped up. Backing out of play.
We've seen Brian out in front of breaking a lot of breaking balls this year and trying to pull the ball. And today he's hit 2 line drives, 1 to the gap, a big double off of King Felix, and then his next at bat got a curveball and lined out to left. I really believe that's a function of the work he's done waiting and hitting the ball to right field in batting practice.
And up and away, 2-2. And he chases the high fastball, 2 down. And now Mauer will bat. RBI single and a solo home run. This is just in May, and heaven knows there haven't been many highlights for the Twins this year, but they were the first team to beat Keuchel at home in a year and a half. And they scored 6 runs against Kluber, and they've scored 6 runs against Felix Hernandez here tonight. 6 runs against Hernandez, that's usually about 4 years worth.
Yeah. Or at least 4 starts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
1 strike to Mauer. Now inside. And I think in all 3 of those games, the Twins had a very focused approach, a game plan. And you know, from the first inning on, you know, first time through the order, regular at bats, and Snow hit a home run. But the second time, it was like, all right, here we go, ambush time. And everybody seemed to attack or go into attack mode early in the count.
I was going to say, I agree with you. And I was going to say that all 3 games were very similar. I think about the Houston game against Keuchel. And Keuchel lives on getting hitters to expand the zone and making them chase balls on curveballs in the dirt and fastballs outside and changeups outside and low. And the Twins just didn't bite that time, made him throw the ball over. And as a matter of fact, he didn't throw the ball over. Walked in 1 run and part of that big inning, and they were very patient. Made him throw the ball in the middle of the plate with pitches they wanted. When he did that, they hit it, and when he didn't do that, they took it for balls. And it was a very good planful attack, and they beat Corey Kluber the same way, and King Felix the same way.
Keuchel ended up walking 5 men in 1 inning.
Yeah. And that wasn't because he didn't throw some close pitches. That everything wasn't 2-3 feet outside. The Twins just laid off of the pitches that he normally gets guys to swing at.
And Mauer takes a walk, and that'll get Sano to the plate for the 5th time. Third walk taken by the Twins tonight. Sano drew a walk in that 3rd inning. Homered in the 2nd. Warning track fly ball to right in the 5th, and then a sharp single to center in the 7th. Bending away from a slow breaking ball. This one was blasted, and it tied the game at 1.
Yeah, even on the replay here, you can hear the sound. That ball was crushed.
Another breaking ball taken for a strike. So much of the hopes for 2016 offensively based on Sano and Byron Buxton, who is absolutely ripping the cover off the ball at AAA. A 2-run double in the ball game again tonight. Inside now 3-1. Escobar on deck.
Now I'm going to be willing to bet you a lot of money that Miguel Sano is not going to be trying to hit the ball anywhere to left field. He's not going to right field here. Yep.
Popped him up. Might have cracked his back.
Yeah, he hit it off the end. He just got a little too anxious because he was going to get a fastball and try to hit it 9 miles there.
Seager with the catch. We head to the bottom of the 9th with the Twins up 7-2. For the Twins against Felix Hernandez. Time now for What's Next, brought to you by CenturyLink. Same time tomorrow night, same channel, same city, same ballpark, different pitchers. Phil Hughes against Wade Miley. See Miley with a 5-2 mark, but a pedestrian 4.50 earned run average. Brandon Kintzler will try to pin things down. Twins up here by 5. And Kintzler will face Gutierrez, Cano, and Cruz.
And you look at the biggest stat right there in 9 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 base on balls. And again, the broken record continues. Don't get behind, don't walk anybody. Make them swing the bat here and finish it off.
Gutierrez hit an opposite field home run in the 1st inning against Dean, and has struck out twice since. just off the outside corner, ball one. This is a Mariner lineup averaging about 5 runs per game. And Pat Dean has limited them to so far just 2, and there's a strike over the inside corner. You were expecting this, weren't you, on Memorial Day weekend to be in Seattle, and Pat Dean might get a win and game might be finished by Brandon Kintzler?
Right. That's exactly the I thought the recipe for beating King Felix. Absolutely.
2-1. Dean didn't walk anybody, neither did Presley.
You know, there's a lot of season left. The Mariners are playing well. I hope they continue. They deserve it here in Seattle. Twins have not played well.
2-2.
But there's a lot of season left for the Twins to get some things turned around and get excited about the good young players that they have again. There's a lot of baseball to be played, boy.
2-2 to Gutierrez. Shot foul. Twins with just a dozen wins on the season. Two and 2. Kintzler to Gutierrez. High chopper. And Dozier scoops and fires 1-1.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Minnesota Twins and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Minnesota Twins, LLC.
Here is Cano. Went 1 for 3 against Pat Dean. Mariners have just 4 hits and none since the 4th inning. Dean not only pitched well, but he finished strong, retiring the last 11 men he faced.
Yes, he did. He pitched very, very well, and you just love to see a guy pitch through the 2nd and 3rd time in the order, pitch that well.
There's Dean 2 outs away from his first major league win. And when he was with us from the dugout a few days ago, he said he grew up a big Yankee fan, was looking forward to pitching to Robinson Cano. Faced him 3 times, with a triple on a ball that could have been caught by Santana in right center field. No walks, 4 hits, and just 2 runs. On the ground. Hit right to Escobar. 2 down. Well, they are on the edges of their seats. They're lazy boys, they're bar stools, whatever, in Waterbury, Connecticut. Nelson Cruz will hit with 2 gone in the 9th. And strike 1 on the outside corner. The last Mariner hit was a broken bat single by Lee that scored Cano after his leadoff triple. 1-1. Sticks one on the outside corner, 1-2. Off the glove of Kintzler, and it'll land in no man's land. An infield hit for Cruz with 2 down. That'll bring up Lee.
One hopper back at Kinsler, and I know there's a pitcher you can't help but go after it. I remember thinking countless times out there at shortstop, a ball about to be hit to me, and the pitcher get in the way of it, and I just think this.
Shortstops are the best athletes on the team,
well,
so why not let them play it?
Right, right. And the pitchers are not. So just let her go.
First hit since the 4th inning, and now a check swing strike to Lee.
Prolonging the agony here for Pat Dean for just a little bit longer. They may or may not be on the edges of their Barca loungers and bar stools in Waterbury, but Pat Dean is figuratively on the edge of his seat right now. Just let me get this one behind me.
2 strikes to Lee. Snap bat. Lee's going through a lot of lumber already in this game. Another 0-2 pitch. Inside, got a foul ball. Come on, I want to celebrate.
Yep.
Two years ago again in Double-A. Sent back from Triple-A. 8-9 with an ERA of 4.81.
Yes, sir.
Strike 3. Kinsler finishes off the Mariners. And Pat Dean gets his first major league win with a superb outing against the second best lineup in the American League.
Actually just dominated that lineup. It just pitched a whale of a ball game. Congratulations, Pat Dean.
Road trip to the West Coast starts off in impressive fashion with Pat Dean and the Twins picking up a win against Felix Hernandez and the Seattle Mariners. The Twins with a 7-2 win in the opener. And we hope to talk to Pat Dean a little bit later in our postgame show, guys.